Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Author Spotlight. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating author. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, I'm Susan Nefzger, author of 3 books, and I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. And my personal writing journey began about 8 years ago when I went on a writing retreat in Glastonbury, England. I started writing the book, A Practical Guide to Awareness, the very first day. I finished the book in 6 weeks, and that was how I discovered my purpose. And my purpose is to help other people become self-aware. So I've been a public relations professional for 30 years and done a lot of business writing. But that was when the personal writing began, and it just took off, and everything, my whole life changed. And I have authored 3 books, and the latest one, which I published recently, is A Practical Guide to Living Fearlessly, which is a step-by-step guide to alleviating a fear-based lifestyle. And now I share tips and techniques on self-awareness and knowing your why through my writing and through workshops. I'm originally from West Palm Beach, Florida. I've been a public relations professional my entire career of 30 years and always thought I would write a book someday. And a lot of people think that. And I never really felt like I knew what that book was until I was inspired to attend a writing retreat in Glastonbury, England. And I went to that retreat not having any expectations, and that's where I was inspired to write my first book through a series of exercises that allowed the people at the retreat to create their creative consciousness. I wrote my first book and finished it in 6 weeks, and that was my inspiration and motivation for writing A Practical Guide to Awareness, which changed my entire life. And as I realized my purpose, that was to help other people become self-aware, I wrote this book, published it, and was sharing these techniques with people throughout the world because so many people in the retreat were from all over the world. And then I just began writing a workbook to go with A Practical Guide to Awareness, which was more of a motivation to share my purpose. And then I recently wrote a book, A Practical Guide to Living Fearlessly, which is my 3rd book, which is tips and techniques for alleviating a fear-based lifestyle. So I grew up in Florida, going to private school, had a career, got married, had a family, and I still felt like something was missing in my life. And then I was inspired to go to the writing retreat. And that's where my whole life changed. And I found out my purpose was to help people become self-aware. That's where I wrote A Practical Guide to Awareness, which is a step-by-step guide to finding your purpose and understanding who you really are and finding what your passion is so that you can share your gift with the world. And now I help other people become self-aware through coaching, through retreats and workshops, and sharing the written word with my books.
So, the very first retreat that you went to must have had a profound impact on you. What was it about the retreat that was unique? What did you take out of that experience that you're now applying to your business going forwards?
The only writing retreat I've ever been to was the first retreat I attended in Glastonbury, England, and I didn't know anything about it. It came to me mysteriously, and I just knew I had to attend the retreat. And I knew at that point I had gone through my career of 25 years in public relations. I had time. I knew maybe it was time to write a book. So I went. And that's where the first day I mind mapped the outline, the title, everything about the book. I saw the cover in my mind's eye, and I went outside and started writing the book and finished it in 6 weeks. But during that time about the retreat is that it was a special process that this person who is a writing coach, it was just an entire process of connecting with your creative consciousness. And it just opened everything up for me. And I wrote the book and published it, and then wrote a workbook after that. I did another retreat with that same woman, and my whole life changed. And I knew as I was going through the process, it was only a 72-hour retreat. I knew going through it, my whole life is changing. I don't know how it's all going to work out, but it's changing it's transforming me. It totally transformed my entire life. Everything.
That's absolutely interesting. So, what really led you to focus on self-awareness as the central theme for your first book, A Practical Guide to Awareness? Was it something
was an inspiration? It was completely inspired. It wasn't anything it was not preconceived at all.
Right.
It just completely came in. I just started writing the book, the title, the outline, started writing it outside in the gardens of Glastonbury Abbey, the ruins, and sitting on a bench in a garden in my journal with a pen.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your writing journey began later in life. How did your career in PR influence your approach to writing and self-expression?
I think it's, for me, when you're older and you begin a new career or a new way of doing things. And this also changed my business model at the time too. That's how much of an impact it had. I think that you have so many experiences and you've already learned so much about life and people and how to be organized. And I'm also a self employed. I have my own business. And when you have your own business, you know how to do a lot of things at once, and you can be organized, and you can fit everything in. And I'm really good at that. So I had to find time. I scheduled time to write in the morning, and then I did whatever I had to do the rest of the day. And I knew the 6 weeks during the time I was writing the book, when I got back home, I mean, it was undeniable. There wasn't anything I could do about it. I had to do it because it was a burning motivation. It was just like someone was tapping me on the shoulder every morning. I woke up and I would just write. And so it was obviously meant to be. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but clearly it changed my life for the better. But I also started practicing more self-awareness, and obviously that's a daily practice. And the more present and the more consciously people live, and the more consciously I live, that's how people are that's how you can be joyful, because knowing who you are is sharing the joy. That once you know who you are, that's what joy is. And it isn't something that you find outside of yourself. So once I was discovering all that, I mean, I was in constant amazement. every day. It was unbelievable.
So the next book was written during the pandemic, A Practical Guide to Living Fearlessly. How
Mhm.
did the global situation shape the content and the message of this book?
Well, interestingly, I began the outline and had the inspiration just before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic. I live in Atlanta, so it's a big city, and the energy of the whole place really affected everyone. And so that the way that everything was working, people were rioting. Um, Everybody was afraid of something, if not everything, at that point. And so that really helped me focus on helping people understand what to really be afraid of and what fear is, and to help people understand how to avoid living in fear, because we were surrounded by fear, right?
Yeah.
If you remember correctly. And so when I wrote it during the pandemic, I mean, it was extremely uncertain. So it really helped me write a very focused book with specific things and tips and techniques on alleviating a fear-based lifestyle. And then now it's, how different everything is. And I wrote it in 2020.
Right.
And that's when I started writing it. And then I published it last year.
Okay.
During that time, I went through my mother's illness in her passing, and I was with her when she passed. And that's at the end of the book. So it was funny because I felt like I was waiting for something, and that was the something I was waiting for. And I addressed that also in the book, because I think one of our biggest fears, at least for a lot of people, is when your parent is dying,
Yeah.
and how they'll die, and if you'll be with them when they die. And if you're close to your parents, and not everybody is, it's for me, it was my biggest fear, if I had one at all. So that shaped my book, as well as the pandemic, because it was all intertwined. So it was
Yeah.
really important. And I understood, oh, that's what I was waiting for to put in the epilogue. And it helped me understand even more how we can find beauty in every day and everything, because that whole experience was filled with things that were not beautiful, and many things were very beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's a key
So,
component.
so what are some of the practical steps from your book that readers can implement to alleviate a fear-based lifestyle?
First of all, which people get tired of me saying, you have to know your why. You have to know who you are, because
Mhm.
the things that your passion, who you are at the soul level, who you really are, not your personality, who you are as a soul, because your personality isn't you.
Yeah.
And we're brought up to believe that we must do certain things. We're conditioned. We have our parents as role models, and so we believe we should be doing things. But if we can just figure out what it is that drives us, that our passion, that's most likely centered on our purpose. And when you understand your purpose, and you understand your who you are, that's a joy that just occurs from
Yeah.
knowing, oh, I know who I am. And you share your joy every day with people. You just can't help it. And so
Yeah.
it's not something you find outside of yourself, but it comes from within. And we're always looking outside of ourselves, but it's so much easier. And people like to think everything has to be difficult, but it's really not. So
Mhm.
understanding, so that's all those things, looking for what you think is your purpose, looking outside of you, feeling either excluded or feeling like you're not good enough. All those things factor into my tips, because you have to understand who you are. You have to understand who you are to understand what you're afraid of.
Yes.
So then when you understand why, okay, so why am I afraid of that? Why is that a trigger? Then you intellectualize it, and then you understand it. And then you understand I don't have to be afraid of that, because it's not really anything to be afraid of. But the
Yes.
key is to be self-aware. And it's a process, and it sounds like an easy thing, and mindfulness sounds like a buzzword. But once we stay present in every moment and go and let things occur, instead of thinking we have to control everything
Yeah.
all the time and stay busy and check every box on the schedule just so I can say I checked that box. That's the thing that makes us feel stressed out, because we're not doing what we really want to do.
Yeah.
Even if we are doing what we really want to do, one of the things that I say to everybody is create space in your day for stillness. Take a look at your schedule every week before you start the week. See what you've said yes to just out of an obligation, or thinking that it's something I have to do. It work, whatever it is, personal life or work. Look at your schedule, review it. Take off the things that are not an absolute necessity.
Yeah.
Give yourself 30 minutes every morning, even if you're just sitting having a cup of coffee and having a quiet moment. 5 minutes. Give yourself 5 minutes. This is what I say, because people say, but how do I start? And how long does it take? And will it take, you know, and so just, if once you get used to creating a ritual morning or evening for yourself,
Yeah.
that space to do
Again,
what you want, then you understand, oh, and so you feel better. Oh, and then you want to do it more. And you add meditation to that, or journaling, or breath work.
yes.
All of those things help center us to start feeling and knowing who we are.
Your book emphasizes real life applications.
Yes.
Can you share a success story from a reader who's implemented your advice and seen some positive changes?
Gosh, I mean, there's people like, yeah, I mean, I can share a story of someone that I've done coaching sessions with, who extremely busy executive in a healthcare hospital situation. Just couldn't make time. And this is really more on a practical level than a spiritual level. But I always try to incorporate the spiritual in a way that, that it's just how I do it. So
Right.
this man had been in the service for 10 or 15 years. So really organized, really bright, like MBA, all the educational and all the organizational system experience. He
Right.
just didn't have time for himself, to make time for himself to work on thinking about what he wanted to do next. So he, I mean, his referral and recommendation, and he just said that what I did was help him focus. And that, in self-awareness, is about focusing, and it is focusing on yourself. And that's
Yes.
the other thing that people don't do, that we just don't do. And because he has a family, and so I helped him focus on what did he want to do next. I helped him do, certain things through business networking, really specific things that made his profile palatable to the next position he wanted. But what we did was we worked over a period of time, and we did it all over the phone or Zoom. And
Right.
so what I do with people, and what he was grateful, is that he of course he made the decision, because he
Right.
knew he wanted to get this done. He wanted to change his life, right? So
Yes.
he did that by contacting me, and then he made the time for himself out of his busy day. It was
Right.
maybe even like we would have an hour call a week. So it wasn't that much time, but it was a little more time than he was used to. And so after through the coaching, then he got a new position he wanted, which is a real life situation. And
Yes.
he got that position, and then so he was extremely grateful for all the things. It's just another perspective. I help people have another perspective, and
I
because
love
most
it.
people don't focus on themselves, and self-awareness is
Mm.
about focusing on finding out who you really are.
So you also write essays, poetry, and engage in photography.
Yes.
How do these different forms of creative expression complement your work as an author?
Well, they all complement my work because they're all forms of creative expression. And I
Yeah.
have to say, back to the original retreat, when I did opened up my creative consciousness, all that started happening. I started writing poetry, which I've never written poetry. I
Okay.
started taking pictures because I wanted to find the beauty in each day. And so then I combined everything. So I combined my photography with quotes from my book or quotes from someone else that I think are meaningful or that will help people. And my photography is a real passion, and I believe that that helps my work and it transforms my work because what I see when I take a picture is different than what a lot of people see, and I feel like I'm bringing that light and that vibration to whoever sees it so I can share that with people so they also have access to it. And that was the original reason why I started taking pictures. So all of that combines to just, I think it makes my work extremely comprehensive, but also it's all creative. It's all
Yeah.
full of light and love and joy, and it's beauty. So sharing beauty is a big thing for me because I feel like we need to do that every day, all of us. It could be like the flowers right here. Flowers are beautiful. You could be having the worst day ever and you can see a beautiful flower, smell it, and you immediately feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It
that's how I would say it helps my work. And it helps me be creative and have joy.
So, looking ahead, what new topics or themes are you interested in exploring in the future of your writing projects?
Well, I'm working on a book right now. And it's I'm not sure what the title is, but it's about relationships for people over age 45, how to
Okay.
navigate them from a self-aware point of view, and how to maybe have a different perspective instead of, when we're older and we enter into relationships. I mean, all of us have been married once at least, if unless you're still married, which would be great. But we all have baggage, we all have experience, we all have the experiences we come into relationships with. And so
Yes.
those shape us, and and we have, everybody has triggers from childhood. And so I think being self-aware and understanding what's a trigger and what we're bringing in. So I'm
Yeah.
working on it. And I think it's really important because I think people are telling me they want they want guidance, from a spiritual kind of, to just step away from who we think we are and
Yeah.
see things as they really are, not what we think they are, because there's always a difference there. So when we're
Yes.
in relationships, I just think that's an important thing to write about, and it's happening. It's going slowly, but so I'm writing that book. But I want to do. I probably want to do in the fall a workshop or a retreat, and I want to help people learn how to write because everybody can write a book. You just have to know what it is you want to write about.
So true. That is so true. Now, let me take you back to the past,
Yes.
to the younger woman who was going into the world of writing. And this is a question in case there is a woman who's thinking about going into writing, is unsure.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back and give that younger woman three nuggets of wisdom
Mm-hmm.
based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those three nuggets of wisdom be?
Well, don't ignore for those people who feel like they want to write a book, if you don't know what it is, but you know that you have something to share, don't ignore it. Try to dig deeper within your inner self and find out what it is. If you know what it is, definitely don't ignore it. Talk to other people. When the things that happened to me when I wrote my first book don't happen often to people. So you can say I was lucky or not, or however you want to look at it. But I felt tremendously fortunate that that's the way it happened. To be inspired. So if you're inspired to write, definitely just start writing every day. It doesn't matter what you're writing. You can write journaling. Journaling is extremely helpful to writing an outline for a book. So the things that you feel like you want to write about from a first person point of view, and then see how that might fit into a book. So my tidbits would be, don't ignore the feeling that you want to write. If you don't know where to start journaling every day, or start writing poetry. If you like poetry, write the thing that you like writing, that's easy for you to write. For me, in my career, I was a business writer. So I was always writing business until I started the personal writing. So that's a jumping off point for a lot of people. They write for business and then they don't know how to get into personal writing. And I would say, find the thing that you like, just like everything else. Find a hobby that you like, whatever your hobby is, write about it. Something that's easy to write about it, and then journal, and then that will lead you to what you will write your book about. But don't ignore it, and believe that you can. And there's tons of networks and groups of writers that you can tap into. So you'll never be alone in terms of writing.
Well, thank you so much for coming online and sharing this amazing story. Where can people buy the book and how can people find you?
People can find me on Amazon. I have an author profile, and you can find it under my name, Susan Nefzger, or my books. A Practical Guide to Awareness is my first book, or A Practical Guide to Living Fearlessly. Also on bookshop.org or Goodreads, or any of the ebook sites, you can find my books. Any Barnes and Noble, all of them. Bookshop.org is more of an indie site for because it doesn't compete with the independent book owners. And you can find, if you want to go on my website, Seeing Beyond the Ordinary, I have a page where you can order my books, all of them.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you for bringing this book into the world. It's been an absolute honor interviewing you. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. Author Spotlight is bringing you the stories and voices of people from all over the world. We share these books to uplift you, inspire you, energize you.
Thank you, Gertrude.
So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thanks again, Susan. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep